in my duties. And I want to apologize for that. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you listening out there today. We certainly appreciate that. We have a Twitter poll up and going. And the Twitter poll is a pretty good one today. You still got time to vote, by the way. You got about a half hour left. At Tony Colombo 971, at Mark Cox 971. And here's what we're asking. I want your thoughts on how the president should move forward on these travel restrictions with these 7 countries. Should he fight it in court, just rewrite the darn thing, or drop it? You've still got time to vote. We've had hundreds of votes on this. I'd like to get yours. Feel free to retweet it and vote, and we will have the results with Tony Colombo coming up just a little bit later this hour. All right. Well, we warned you about this. Don't say we didn't tell you so. The mayor of the city of St. Louis has now signed into law a bill that effectively makes St. Louis an abortion sanctuary. It adds pregnancy and reproductive health decisions as protected classes, because this was such apparently a threat to womanhood everywhere in the city of St. Louis that Mayor Slay has now signed this bill, and it's over the objections of at least there are a few aldermen in the city that have a shred of common sense left, because they realize that it's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. We're joined right now by Karen Knoll-Kemper. Karen has been our guest before on the show. She is the Respect for Life Apostolate Director for the St. Louis Archdiocese. Karen, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well, thank you. I understand that the Archdiocese had some folks go to this hearing the other day on this bill before it was perfected to express concerns over it that were clearly just ignored.
Right. It's very, very frustrating, but we are very grateful for those aldermen and women who did stand up for common sense, wisdom, and for religious freedom. So there were some people that did that, and we are very grateful for their courageous moves. But yes, we are very disappointed with the outcome. As you said, Mayor Slay did sign this into law just yesterday. So we are very disappointed with that and very, very concerned moving forward.
So explain to my listeners what the fallout is. Your concern is about what the fallout may be going forward now that we have built this into the city's basically anti-discrimination ordinance.
Right. Well, here's what's very frustrating, just backing all the way up. Obviously, nobody wants to be discriminated against. That's exactly what's happening for us when other people are safe. What's happening is the way the language of the bill is written, it's very vague, very overbroad, and it talks about some people say, well, there's exceptions or exemptions for religious institutions, but really that's not true. What the language in the bill does, it says, yes, there's some exemptions in terms of health care coverage. So religious institutions would not be forced to provide abortion coverage in their health care plans, and religious institutions would have an ability to prohibit abortions from taking place on their property. So that part is true. They did add some exemptions in the language for religious institutions. However, what's very, very concerning is these exemptions do not cover rights of individual business owners. And also, there's no religious protection for hiring and firing practices for people who would publicly speak out or act in a way very contrary to the deeply held beliefs of the Catholic Church and other religious institutions. I can, give you an example of that if you would like to kind of
please.
Further. Okay, great. Thank you. For instance, this is what's concerning, Mark. If you had a religion teacher in a grade school, in a city school, that religion teacher, let's say he's a man, he could stand up and say, I've had a vasectomy and I don't care what the church says. I think this is a good thing and I want to encourage other people to do that. That's clearly against our practices, and we cannot then speak out and discipline that individual. And likewise, if you had a female teacher, religion teacher in a grade school, in a city school, that teacher, maybe she would say something like, I'm about to have an abortion a month from now, and I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what the church says. They can't tell me what to do. In other words, we would not then have the right to discipline this individual, and obviously, clearly, they're speaking out and behaving in a way contrary to our deeply held beliefs. Back to what you were saying, I know people like to throw around the word discrimination. And again, the bottom line is it's doing that very thing towards us. All city ordinances and all laws should give equal protection and respect for all people. Obviously, women facing unplanned pregnancies, unborn children, and people who really deeply desire to live their lives in accordance with their religious convictions. So it really should be fair to all. And you mentioned this at one of the previous broadcasts, too, Mark, in terms of protected class status. So now what's happening is protected class status has been elevated to cover behaviors, personal behaviors, and personal choices. It's gone above and beyond covering intrinsic qualities. We all, I think, would agree it should cover intrinsic qualities such as race, ethnicity, age, etc. But now what happens is you have this problem, again, where you're elevating behavior to protected class. Well, where does that laundry list stop? If you can protect a class that could extend to certain behaviors that I disagree with or you disagree with, and invariably we're going to infringe upon somebody else's rights. So we've extended that description and definition well beyond where it should be. And the bottom line is we all have constitutional rights, and God willing, they'll stand, and we all have equal protection under the Constitution. But it really does not make a lot of sense, and it's very scary once you start down the path of extended protected class to cover personal behavior as opposed to staying with intrinsic qualities.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're talking to Karen Noll-Kemper, who's representing the Archdiocese today. Archbishop Carlson referred to it as a vile bill that has been mistakenly heralded as a success for women by misguided organizations like NARAL and Planned Parenthood. And I wonder moving forward, like, for example, if I'm a property owner in the city and somebody approaches me about wanting to rent out the bottom floor of my building and I turn them down and it just ends up that they were an abortion provider, they can then go to the city and claim that I was discriminating against them?
That's exactly right, Mark. That's exactly right.
That's just
very frustrating.
Yeah. No, just because, if I disagree with the nature of a business that wants to locate on my property, I should be able to have a say about that.
Absolutely. In a free country, you should have that right. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, if somebody, maybe I'm taking this to the extreme, but something tells me that they probably, I don't know if they have anything like this or not, but what if somebody wanted to put a pornography shop in the bottom floor of your building? You should have the right to say no to that.
Amen. You said that very well, and that should be your right. And as long as we're a free country, we're hoping and praying that continues to be our right to do that, to say no to that, because we disagree with the pornography shop and we disagree with the abortion providers, the activities that are going on within that shop.
I know that the Archdiocese said that they would probably end up in court over this. I don't know if it's premature to talk about that or not, but what are the next steps? Do you know?
Sure. Absolutely. The Archdiocese is preparing to file a lawsuit. It's my understanding that's what we're doing, and we're engaging attorneys who will help us prepare that lawsuit.
Yeah, I don't know from a state legislation perspective if there's anything state legislators and the governor could do to try to trump this. Do we know the answer to that?
We are very, very hopeful that we'll find some success on the state level, and that's where we're heading next as well, too, just in terms of finding some good common ground, some good common sense wisdom. So, yes, on the state level, there is legislation in play that we're very hopeful about in terms of, again, protecting human rights, the right to life, as well as the right to religious freedom. Yeah,
it's just a shame that it seems to have been done maybe for political reasons. Somebody had mentioned in the article that I read that it's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I just can't imagine this has been a widespread problem in the city that suddenly needs to have this ordinance in place.
You're absolutely right. In fact, several of the alderpersons who bravely spoke up made that very point, Mark. They said just what you said, a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And it's just very frustrating because it draws a lot of attention, spotlighting St. Louis for a reason we don't want to be spotlighted for. It calls attention to division and things that aren't needed, as opposed to calling attention to the great things we're doing in St. Louis and the wonderful resources we have to support and sustain life through Catholic charities and through other charitable organizations and funds, people of faith and people of goodwill. So it'd be so much nicer to be known for a wonderful city, a sanctuary city for life, and again, channel those resources, funds, promotion towards those existing resources that are there to support people experiencing crisis pregnancies, other needs, mental health, drug addiction, et cetera. So we've got just a number of organizations that are listed on our website, archstl.org and or stlrespectlife.org to give people specific details about pertinent free resources in our wonderful city.
Karen, thank you so much for your time.
Mark, thank you so much for this opportunity to share more.
Keep up the good work. Thank you.
You bet. God bless.
All right. Yeah.
Thanks,
Take care. Karen Nolkemper there from the Respect Life Apostolate with the St. Louis Archdiocese. They're going to go to court over this, and I'm glad to see it. Somebody's got to rein these folks in the city. Stephen Conway, who's the 8th Ward alderman for the city, said that the bill was proposed now simply because it's an election season. And causing division is one way people have learned to get elected. So I think that's he's among the people who voted against it. Alderman Larry Arnowitz voted against it. Alderman Joe Vaccaro, who we had on the show last week, talking about this bill and another board bill that would restrict folks who fight for life and who want to go out and stand on the sidewalk outside of one of these abortion clinics and try to counsel people before they go in and make this mistake. And it would further restrict them, keep set distance limits and all this stuff, which again I'm sure is going to end up being challenged in court if that's what happens. I'll get some of your phone calls on this. 314-969